Yeah, good evening, madam. Namaskar. Please don't mind, madam, I was a bit late.
Yeah, we'll go now live. We're going live. Good evening, everyone. A rainy Sunday day. We have spent a lot of very hot summer. Now, slowly we are taking into the cool, lovely weather, very good atmosphere. I welcome you all to this 453rd session of Telangana Jana Vedika. Today, we have taken up a very, very important subject post-COVID. And fortunately, we have one of the best academicians India could have, Professor Sheetal Sharma from JNU New Delhi. And we all know post-COVID, India is facing a lot of educational problems in rural India and elsewhere also. So the challenges facing by the education sector during this COVID days and also this post-COVID days, how an online education has the challenges of facing. So that we have requested and to give a keynote address by Dr. Professor Sheetal Sharma of JNU New Delhi. She has kindly accepted her, and I thank Manoj, Telangana Jana Vedika Hyderabad chapter squad convener, for bringing Professor Sheetal Sharma into this forum. Thanks him, and also thank you all for joining this very important session of Telangana Jana Vedika. And I now request James Prashant to introduce the subject and introduce the speaker to the forum. Later, after James Prashant's introduction, Professor Srinivasulu Aputota will be the moderator and he will formally request Professor Sheetal Sharma to address this meeting. Thank you so much. James, please take over.
Thank you. A very good evening to everyone. I welcome you for the 453rd forum session of Telangana Jana Vedika on this Sunday. Our topic today is online education issues and challenges. The nomadic community known as Dasarik Gosavi has a subcaste Davari, which has a population of about 800,000. They are mainly located in Maharashtra. Recently, in 2018, Kalidas Ankush Shinde became the only second person from this community to earn a doctorate. It costed him 4 lakhs in loans, and his PhD was from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which is no means a small achievement. Even though all citizens have been given the right to education in the Constitution, Attaining the pinnacles of education, if not a PhD, can only remain a distant dream for most of the population of our country. Let us have a quick look at the history and constitutional background that went into the process of making the Right to Education Act. It was originally Part 4 of Indian Constitution, Article 45 and Article 39, and had a provision for state-funded as well as equitable and accessible education. The Ramurthy Committee report of 1990 was the first official document on the right to education. The landmark judgment that education is a fundamental right flowing from Article 21 by the Supreme Court in the Unikrishnan JP versus State of Andhra Pradesh and others was a major milestone. Then Tapas Majumdar Committee 1999 was set up, which encompassed insertion of Article 21A. Then in 2002, the 86th Amendment to the Constitution of India provided the right to education as a fundamental right in Part 3 of the Constitution. The same amendment inserted Article 21A, which made right to education a fundamental right for children between 6 to 14 years. The 86th Amendment provided for a follow-up legislation for Right to Education Bill 2008 and finally Right to Education Act 2009. Some of the features of Right to Education Act 2009 are providing primary education for children between 6 to 14 years. It also enforces education as a fundamental right, Article 21. The Act mandates 25% reservation for disadvantaged sections of the society. It also states that sharing of financial and other responsibilities between central and state governments. It lays down the norms and standards related to pupil-teacher ratios, teacher working hours. It prohibits physical punishment and mental harassment, capitation-free. It focuses on a system of child-friendly and child-centered learning, making the child free of fear, trauma, and anxiety. While RTE, Right to Education Act, has had some achievements, including that it is justiciable, but has it been enough? The COVID-19 pandemic had completely turned the education system on its head, not just in our country. And the United Nations Secretary General had warned of an worldwide education catastrophe. Due to the pandemic, schools were closed for more than a year. Huge segment of the student population could not access remote learning. Schools and teachers were not equipped and neither trained to handle remote teaching. When the norm for teaching method became online classes, it was not a small or gradual shift for families in the lakhs of small towns, rural areas, and hamlets across India. They had to take a giant leap in terms of purchasing costly equipment and connectivity needed. Because apart from the hardware, one needs to buy at least 1.5 GB data per day, and BSNL, providing the lowest cost, could not rise to the occasion for this dire need. Even now, schools were underprepared for the return of children and the diversity that they will encounter in terms of the psychosocial impact and the nutritional impact, which in all likelihood shall be long lasting. Plans for reopening and strengthening schools to make up for the learning gap and the trauma of the students are lacking. Education and human resource development should be at the center of long-term economic development plans. Human capital theory suggests that education plays a major role in increasing the productivity of the economy. While multinationals have been in the market of online education since some time, their presence is going to be omnipresent in the coming future. The metabolism of current society is structured around the capitalist neoliberal regime, which revolves around the exchange of commodities. And even education has been reduced to intellectual labor power instead of academic aimed activity and has been quantified as a commodity, as a unit of labor sold in the market. Therefore, as Yanis Iqbal says, for the individual possessing education, intellectual labor power is a commodity whose consumption can potentially produce more value than the commodity itself contains. For the consumer, then, the transformation of intellectual labor into intellectual labor power amounts to transformation of a fundamental human activity into an abstract unit in the total system of market flows. Thus, this shall have a fundamental effect in the structures of society based on a democratic constitution. Will this change scenario enable the culmination of emancipatory education and oppose the cultivation of awakened intelligence, which enables the integral development of reason, thinking, and intuition? We have been reading that only 11% of students in the rural areas were able to access online education. This is a very important subject. Education is a foundational stone for the future of our nation. Telangana Jana Vedika feels that major policy reforms should be brought in for equitable education for all the citizens of the country. To address this very concerning issue, which is compounded by many issues and challenges, we are very happy to have with us a very senior and experienced academic, Dr. Sheetal Sharma from the Center for European Studies, School of International Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Her research interests are international relations, gender and empowerment of women diaspora studies, culture and society in Europe, research methodology in social sciences. Dr. Sharma writes regularly on social relevant issues in India and Europe for journals and magazines of national and international repute. She has also been invited as a discussant on a number of programs on radio and TV. She has presented papers in a number of national and international seminars and conferences. At the Center for European Studies, JNU, she offers MPhil and PhD supervision in the broad areas of international relations with a focus on the sociological understanding of nature, structure, and dynamics of social and cultural institutions in Europe. She is an avid author and has written many books, many chapters in books. She has also been awarded numerous awards, fellowships, and grants. This is only a snapshot of Dr. Sharma's very extensive CV. And we are most honored to have a distinguished academic in our midst. And now, before I hand over the floor to our moderator, as per our tradition at Telangana Jana Vedika, I would like to read the preamble of our constitution. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and the integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Telangana Jana Vedika Zoom online meeting 453 session. I welcome to all Vedika members and Professor Sheetal Sharma. Today's topic online education issues and challenges. Already introduced Dr. James Prashant. Also introduced Madam Sheetal Sharma. Today's topic online education issues and challenges. I invite them to speak on online education issues and challenges. Dr. Sheetal Sharma. Madam.
Good evening, everyone. Namaskaram from my side. And I'm so happy to be invited by Telangana Jana Vedika Society to talk about online education. I'm very happy to know about that Jana Vedika Society is also engaged in so many other social activities. And this is 453rd, James, am I right?
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
you are. The 453rd.
It's wonderful, which means that if every Sunday something like this happens, so you have been doing it for many years now. And I wish all the luck for your future endeavors and everything that is associated with your society so that it touches the lives of the people at the grassroots level. Now, I was asked to speak on something which relates to the any social issue or anything which is contemporary and relevant for us. And as a teacher, as a learner, I would not even call myself as a teacher because learning is non-stop process until you land up in your coffin. So I would say that, as a learner, as a person who is engaged in the process of exploring the social, the political, the economic world, I found COVID as one of the eye openers for us, because this was something from where we switched onto another mode of learning. And this switch was something which was full of challenges, which was full of something which we had not imagined earlier or we had never ever thought of. Say, if I take you back into history, like in Bollywood movies, you remind yourself, take yourself into 2020 December or somewhere, and you are sitting leisurely in your class, taking down your notes, and suddenly the COVID happens in 2-3 months time. Nobody knew what to do. It was very easy for the government all over the world to announce the lockdown, everything shut. But while James, you would agree, and everybody in the room, you must have seen, that for a while the industries were shut, the rails were not moving on, everything. People got a desired, a long desired holiday or something like that. But me and my fraternity and my colleagues and my students, everybody, I would say, and I'm by saying me, I'm representing the entire community of educators and those who are involved in the process of education. We went into sixth gear, not even the fifth. And trust me, all of you have kids or in family, you must have experienced this, that within 3 weeks time, and 3 weeks, I'm giving a very liberal estimate. Within 3 weeks time, the students were, I also have a young son, so the students were so well equipped with the process of transition from physical classes to online mode. So if I try to recall that journey of 3 weeks from where absolutely shut down, how do we cover the syllabus, how do we conduct exams, to absolutely 18 days in which you knew how am I going to carry on the enterprise of education, this was very swift. And when everybody was relaxing, maybe or may not be, when everybody was in the process of not doing anything forcefully or voluntarily, enjoying it or not enjoying it, at least this enterprise of education continued its journey with a full vigor. So it was an invention for us, it was a discovery for us, and it was something like that we adopted to a new system. And quickly, the new norm got settled and it became the new normal. And now when the things are trying to come back to normalcy, we are having a synthesis of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I see the book Capital in the bookshelf behind James, and I'm using this Marxian terminology, that this was the synthesis, that now we are in the age of hybrid education. If you permit me, I would like to share my screen, a small slideshow that I have prepared to keep my audience engaged. Although there's not much in it, I would like to rather talk more as compared to show this. But let me begin with this. Is it visible? Just do this. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Now, I'm going to focus in my presentation on online education issues and challenges. And by issue, I mean general things that we are encountering and the challenges that we faced over a period of time. And many of these things are requiring a kind of concerted effort in order to overcome the kind of problems that we faced even prior to COVID and during COVID, and now in the post-COVID synthesis era. Now, my presentation is going to be divided into these 4 sections, and I'll be talking about what education, why education, and how education, the present scenario of the education system in India, then on the online education, primarily comparing it with the offline and various aspects and dimensions of online education. And then one important component in which it's not just about the education system, but we are practitioners of education. Education is incomplete without the 2 set of stakeholders, teachers and the students. The way the system, the way the institution is organized, these two are the most important building blocks of education system, and how their roles are changing, and how we are seeing, what kind of changes and expectations are coming from these. And primarily, I would focus more upon teachers' role, those who are in the process of delivering education, and what kind of issues and challenges they are facing. Now, to begin with, we talk about some of the foundational pillars of education. And for me, these can be divided into three pillars: the philosophical, the theoretical, and the practical. And all these sciences, social sciences, you talk of astronomy, you talk of the physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, literature, humanities, everything is woven around, this process of exploring and knowing. As a learner of European studies, sometimes we tend to talk about knowledge systems existing all over the world. Yes, we are proud of our knowledge systems, which have been existing for 5,000 years, or during Vedic times, and all these the ideas pertaining to our everyday living. The philosophy behind these knowledge systems was to explore, to explain, to understand, to decipher, to identify the cause and consequences of the social, natural, astronomical, whatever kind of phenomena we are talking about, or the subject under the lens. Now, these philosophical foundations were there in order to make lives better for people. Say, for instance, we say in Hinduism, there is nothing called as it's another story, another debate, another parallel session when we say that Hinduism is not a religion, it is a way of life. And then it was identified by the Britishers to categorize a category of people, those who were following a particular way of life. But philosophically speaking, education was for the progress of humanity, for the progress of mankind. And one point of time in history, particularly, we see the process of enlightenment in European society, where we see a shift. And why I take example of European society, because I tend to teach this with so much of passion, that Enlightenment era, prior to Enlightenment, you had Renaissance, and then Enlightenment, and in Enlightenment era, every foundation of those supernatural beliefs, dogma, and superstition were dismantled brick by brick. And rational thinking, scientific thinking, reasoning, fact-based, proof-based experimentation came into existence. And people started perceiving the world in a different fashion. And this was the theoretical foundation. And what was theory? The theory was a simple statement of fact which connected A with B. And by A and B, I mean the variables. Say, for instance, if A is education, A would lead to B. So A would lead to prosperity, B. So A is directly proportional to B. Education is directly proportional to prosperity. And if I have to again give a law-like explanation of society, then we can say A is indirectly proportional to C, and C can be crime. So these are the theoretical explanations or law-like explanations which tend to give a kind of logical link between various variables. So A is directly proportional to B and inversely proportional to C. And social sciences such as economics, particularly, I would talk about, they are all based on purely scientific models, theoretical explanations, or law-like explanations. And once again, you can recall your economics classes of class 10 or 12. All other things being equal, the law of demand states that when prices go down, demand goes up. So what they are doing, they are using a graph in order to plot the demand and the supply and try to give a very causal mechanism or a causal explanation behind A and B, demand and the price. So the theoretical aspects are very beautiful in terms of giving us an insight about that to know is to predict. This is what French philosopher Auguste Comte talks about. He says to know is to predict, and to predict is to control. And if ready, sir, I can use my board here. The French philosopher, I'm a very conventional teacher, so I just can't manage without using chalk and talk. So the French philosopher Auguste Comte talks about, he says to know is to predict, and to predict is to control. So if I know, and this was the essence of scientific methodology, that if I know that this water is contaminated, to know is to predict that people will fall sick on drinking this water, and to predict is to control that stop drinking this contaminated water. So this is how the philosophy, progress of society, got into theory, that how I explain the world, and this theory got into practice, and this is what people like Jana Vedika or any other NGO is doing, that they are actually practicing a philosophy theoretically in society for what? For upliftment of human beings, for the progress of society. That is the essence of education. What we do generally is, तुम्हारा degree क्या है? What have you done? Are you doing science? Are you doing social sciences? We get engrossed spinning around into this orbit, where we are just calculating the variables. Okay, now done 10th, now 12th, what to do, what not to do, what's fellowship to apply. But the core remains that, are we achieving philosophical goals through education, or are we achieving material goals? And the second, achieve what, is something, which is a recent entry. It's a new entrant on the block. Why I say new entrant? Because this material goal is just 200 or 300 years old. And India, we would say, just, it's a consequence of globalization, that we have started measuring success in terms of big plot, big car, big salary, big house, a house, even 2-floor house with an elevator and all these things. So what are we trying to achieve with this education? We are trying to achieve, for the ideal typical situation, we are trying to achieve the philosophical goals, but at the same time, the modern education system has given greater importance to this material density, I would say, as compared to the philosophical and the moral density. And I'm using these two words, material and moral density, from one of the famous sociologists of previous century, Emile Durkheim. And Durkheim talks about, and he also gives a law-like explanation. All these social scientists during the 19th century, they were perforce influenced so much by science that they used scientific terminology a lot. So this density words primarily comes from physics, but then they are using it in social science to explain this. And that shows their compulsion also to match their steps with the scientific community. At the same time, their aspiration to also become so precise, not to believe in something which is unseen. And once again, taking you back to this pre-enlightenment era, general scenario in Europe, suppose we are commoner, we are the majority, the proletariat, the masses, we would say, God, 20 people have died in my village, in my hamlet. What do we do? So we knock the door of the church. So they say, I think Jesus is not happy with you, or God is unhappy with you. So they would say, what do we do? So they would say, appease the God by offering 20 silver coins. Still, the death is not arrested. So they would say another 50 coins, another 60 coins. So for a long period of time, the life, for a long period of time, the life got divided into, the operating mechanism or the operating framework was something of, say, believing in superstition, believing in dogma, believing in something which is supernatural, but nothing attributable to me. But enlightenment gave the reins back to the individual. I would not say back, but enlightenment gave people the power to control their destiny, that it is not something which is unseen out there, who is uncontrollable. It is something, this is in your hand. And that is why, if you know the world, you can predict. And if you predict, you can control, have theories, bring them down into practice, and ultimately serve the philosophical purpose. Durkheim says that as material density in modern societies goes up, the moral density goes down. And this is what he's saying, that material realities have changed. The configuration, the way people are connected to one another, the way people are relating to one another. Now, coming down to the next part of it is that when we talk of education, there are so many definitions of it, education for people like Kabir Das, they were never formally educated, but then they had wisdom. Is it training? Is it instruction? Is it your challenge? And this word cloud shows the kind of variety of ideas, perceptions that strike my mind when I talk about this concept of education. It is very difficult to define. And that is why I say that it is for some, it's literacy, about reading, about knowing people, or going to school, or taking up challenge. any word or any word that you can add to this existing cloud tends to show that education is not an easy nut to crack. But ultimately, everybody is aspiring for it, no matter whether you belong to whatever part of society or level of society. But this is something which is generally called as a process of knowing, of exploring, of gaining knowledge. That is why I never call myself a teacher, because I may call, during a speech or like, but inside my mind, I know that what am I doing? Am I telling people how to read, how to write, or making them literate, or honing their skills, or am I giving them wisdom? Am I imparting some knowledge? If knowledge is being imparted, then these days Google has made it so easy. What am I giving something more than what they can read? If they read English better than me, they can understand it better than me. So all these questions are there. So whom are you educating? How are you educating? And this leads us to these three fundamental questions of what, why, and how of education. What is education? Why education is important, and how are we imparting or carrying out the process of gaining knowledge is something which is now the focus of talk. That is online education. That's the how of it. Now, when we talk of this pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, jnana, satya, this is central to Indian thought and philosophy. But the goal that I talk about is something that is for the emancipation, enlightenment of human beings. It's enlightenment in the sense that when we look at the self gets enlightened, and then this enlightenment changes the way in which we are related to others in society. Ultimately, we are in the process of building social relationships. And if you look at, the what we say, the ashram system in India, the life, the brahmacharya, the grahast, and the vanprasth and the sannyas, they are also interconnected, and they are also indicating that you leave material density behind. If in case the moral density has to go up, the more you have to see inward, the more the material has to go back, and the more you become inward, the more everything gets connected to you. Indian philosophy too rich in the sense of giving people this gyan, pragya, and satya. And those are the cores of Indian philosophy. And how are they being practiced now? Let us see how far they are and how much we are having ability to interpret what has been existing. Now, I'll share some of my ideas. You may agree or may not, but then they are really thought-provoking. And we had, some of the world-class institutions that had the highest standards of multidisciplinary teaching, in years back. And then we come to a stage in which once again people talk about dark ages of European society. I sometimes also talk about dark ages of Indian society. So those are the era in which the Britishers had colonized us. Not much happened. Yes, there are some gains, at the same time some losses, and then the whole 150 years of exploitation, plunder of wealth. And then the process, it's also had a kind of different kind of impact, that it brought people together. Union of India, Gandhiji thought about education, and then how education acquired a new style, acquired a new shape and structure, which was now modern education. For some time, there is a dark age in which we do not talk about this education systems existing. But then suddenly we see a jump in the history, and now we are seeing Macaulay's system. Now we are seeing that dark age where we are not having much of history on Indian education system. It needs to be properly explored by historians. It's not just about rewriting the history, changing names here and there, but it is all about exploring that what was the nature of education at that point of time. Was it purely theological? Was scientific component there in it? How much did the Mughals influence it? How was the nature of hybrid education system that was coming into existence? Who were the consumers of this education? Who were the practitioners of education system? Why did it go down as compared to the levels in the history? And now what was the modern education system, and the modern education system post independence, what we are seeing now, what we are practicing now, although modified, but this is where we see ourselves standing today, staring into the eyes of the education system, and education system staring back into my eyes, that look, here I am, and treat me well. So the first line of our National Education Policy 2020 says this. It is for achieving full potential of individual. And the three cardinal principles that get expressed in this is access, quality, and equity. I repeat, access, quality, and equity. And by access, this somehow indicates the fragmented nature of Indian society in terms of access to education. It involves almost every parameter that you can imagine, from gender to digital divide, to caste inequalities, economic inequalities, social, regional, parochial, whatever you can imagine, it has a direct or indirect bearing upon access to education. By quality, I never say that teachers are not of good quality. No matter they are existing in one of the remotest villages in Northeast or in South, in North, or anywhere in India, they are all quality rich teachers. They are imparting education with full commitment, full ability, what they can do. But what reduces the quality as compared to somebody sitting and having access to, it's the props, it's the gadgets, it's the resources. So here, if I'm telling something to you, I have the ability to share my screen with you with smart boards. If I have to tell you that, okay, this is the highest mountain range in the world, this is located in, I run some of the commands on my smart board and do this. But some areas, people do not have access to these quality rich resources, these props, and that is why the quality comes down. It's not the quality of the teacher, it is the resources at the dispense of the teacher that makes it less effective as compared to somebody sitting here and talking. And then about equality, about access, about equity, that we have to reach our full potential in order to have a equitable and just society. I was so happy you read out the Constitution. It talks about liberty, equality, freedom, and fraternity. And these are some of the fundamental principles that must be instilled in the DNA of students, rather than promoting this material density that, okay, have big car, have a American dream, have this. Why not have an Indian dream? Why not have a Telangana dream? That, okay, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to study hard, and I'm going to work for my society. The philosophical foundations have displaced themselves. They are not off the scene. I'm not saying that they have been dismantled the way religion once upon a time faced the crisis, but they are slightly misplaced. So the foundation is this side, and what we are building is a bit tilted. So for promoting development, you can call it national development, yes, because we are in a territory, but for equitable and just society, that is fulfilling the foundational principles of education. Now, what are the current challenges that we are facing? We are facing with the fragmented ecosystem, poor learning outcomes, rigid inflexibility, lack of quality. Once again, I would say I'll just summarize all these points. And then low teacher-student ratio, inadequate career management, funding, governance, regulatory mechanism, affiliated institution. You pick up any thread or any element in the education system, it is fraught with some of the challenges, some of the issues which are very pertinent, and then they become some of the pressing issues. Say, for instance, in all these things, I would talk about research, because I belong to a research university, not just teaching here. And in research, how much is the funding? What are we doing? Are we producing something new? What are the issues and challenges that actually, and I would say that sciences face so much of challenge while carrying out research, and social sciences more to do with talking and reading the books as compared to, the laboratory, the wet laboratory or the dry laboratory experiments that you do in physical sciences and in biological sciences. So how much research oriented we people are. And this is where sometimes even the best of our universities tend to find themselves not matching up to the standards of the international universities, the top ranking ones. Yes, of course, we have very good pool of people, those who are interested in pursuing good careers. And that is why somehow we cherish American dream, we cherish Western dreams, because of the ecosystem. The first one, the ecosystem gives them opportunity to flourish as compared to the ecosystem that is existing here. It may be, there are n number of reasons for this. It can be resources, population, the number of institutions, quality, this, but ultimately this is the ecosystem that catches people. it's like a plant which is carnivorous in nature. The insect come, it flies, it catches it, and then gone. So the ecosystem has to be made so engaging that the kind of skills that people have, they cherish a Telangana dream, an Andhra dream, or a Haryana dream, or Indian dream, rather than having an American dream, because this is where our actual test lies, if we are able to retain the talent. But if we are expelling the talent, if we are alienating the talent, and once again I use this concept of Marx, alienation, if we are alienating the people from the system, we are not able to do justice to the philosophical foundations of education that we are here for. So issues with education system, almost 3.5 decades passed before we had National Education Policy 2020. And trust me, the policy has some goods but bads as well, because there would be issues with implementation of this policy, and this is what is going to make it face certain baby steps, challenges, or the teething troubles which are going to get unfolded now gradually. Because as we are entering into the new academic year, the Delhi University has developed a 4-year academic program, but for the general courses there's nothing. Even for the honors courses, people are finding it problematic, that as compared when I did sociology honors, or you did political science honors, or any other honors, the corpus of knowledge that was exchanged between the institution and the learner was too much. It actually made you an expert in sociology to a certain extent, but now with that kind of FYUP, what kind of programs you are going to choose, what interests you, what is this, are we going to make a mix of all, or are we actually going to develop a specialist? And then question of undoing MPhil directly after masters, you are not mature to know the wherewithal or actually practicing or hands-on experience with doing research, because research requires a different set of skill or acumen in an individual. So that used to come from MPhil, but now with undoing of MPhil, what are you going to do? Are you ready? Are you prepared for directly jumping from masters to this? So many issues are going to come, and this is what is the new education policy attempting to address. But at the same time, there are certain gaps. Then there are changes that have taken place in our economy, in country and world, and with LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, we ourselves have seen a massive change in the way education is being done. And gone are the years when Kendriya Vidyalayas or central schools were the most prestigious schools, and you had a premium tag if your son or daughter was in KV. So you would say that Mangalapuram KV is the best KV, #1 in Bangalore, and we are going to send my child to that. Now DPS, Goenkas, and these chains have come. They have changed the way we have been seeing education. We have been perceiving education, and with perception comes this part of education, that now this is something which is as a commodity being sold and bought. And online has drastically changed with all these private players and apps to make your children learn under a two tutors are teaching, and without saying the name, the two teachers ka kamal hai, and he's or she is learning to padhai to banegi, interesting kind of ads that you are watching on TV. So liberalization and privatization has changed actually the how of education. The what and why are getting subsumed, buried under the process of how of education, and how is changing actually the character of education. And this is where privatization is one of the important forces. Then technology, yes, and Indian education system tends to remain plagued by this reach, quality, professionalism, and everything you talk about it. And as one of the stakeholders in the education system, as a parent, as a student, as a teacher, whatever way I see myself, I have some or the other problem with the education system, and we fold our hands and talk so much about it, like the way I'm talking about it right now. But the importance is that, number one, if you know the problem, you can actually find the solution. Unless you know the problem, you cannot find the solution. It's like a treatment of a symptom. And the symptom is showing that something is problematic here. So we have to develop that concerted strategy in order to overcome the kind of the issues that are plaguing our system. And then you listed again, these are some of the things which are there problematic now, the gaps between real life vocations and learning outcomes, the rural urban private public divide, excessive emphasis upon marks. And this is something which is very interesting, and I sometimes used to talk about it, that 12 years of schooling, class 12th board examination, the first question we used to ask a student the day his board examination result would be out, kitna mila, how much did you get? Did you ever ask him, what did you learn in these 12 years? Am I right, Manoj sir? Manoj Reddy sir? We always ask, kitna mila? And it starts from 10th onwards. 9th May, you are sowing the seeds of science and non-science. And this would be a prestige tag in your office if you're working in revenue services or in banking. Oh, next officer, his son is doing social science and my son has got PCM, PCB with computer science and this and that. It's a prestige tag that I carry on my son's or daughter's shoulder, the weight. And teachers sometimes observe students succumb to it. Kota, in Rajasthan is one of the factories producing, the engineers need this preparation. And thankfully, in the last few years, it has come down. But some of the percentage of statistics of suicide is expanded only because of such cities and the kind of competition people or students are pushed into. Once again, I use Durkheim, a famous study called as suicide. He showed that suicide is a social problem, not an individual problem. And he connects this propensity of suicide in the communities. And you look at suicide rate in India, it goes normal. The month your board examination results are announced, it goes up, and then it goes down like this. So it's not, if you just observe the trend among students. So this is excessive pressure on this child. And then we never ask them, what did you learn? Which subject did you like? What would you like to pursue? Kitna mila? How much did you get? Will decide your future, will decide your fate, will decide your university, will decide your institution and your ranking. And this is where sometimes, although I do not like that this board examinations weightage has to be done away with a combined central university examination system, because then it would just do away with the entire hard work that my dear teachers are doing. And I would bring some very, very interesting instances and experiences from my life. But then this has led to selling education as a commodity in market. And those who can buy it are better placed. I don't know. I am seriously apprehensive about that you pay more money and then you, I can give you an analogy. A donkey and a horse are running a race, all right? And you tie a sack full of money on donkey's back and say, run. Can he run? Can it run as fast as the horse or cheetah? No. With money, you just cannot push somebody if the person is not of that brand, breed, or whatever. So it's not about something that can be bought or sold, but the market, the capitalist market, is making it look like easily A is directly proportional to B. Put more money is directly proportional to better achievements. They're using a theory to sell a philosophy to you, which is, I think, which must be questioned by the parents, and the poor kids would be spared by it. So these are some of the issues, but then the main areas that require focus here are enrollment, access, quality, global standards, what we are lacking in terms of, pedagogy, creativity, expression, and language. And this last part, the pedagogy, I say, would further be a casualty of online learning. And I'll tell you how, that how creativity, expression, language, and many things are going to be, be buried under this pedagogy, in which it's not just the style of teaching, it's the how, the mechanism, the medium of teaching, and online is going to severely impact all these things, which are actually to be highlighted and are the need of hour in order to make our education system much more strong. So challenges: are we having realistic goals? Are we having access, funding, and ensuring quality? Do we have a clarity of government strategies for this? How we implement, and some of these issues which are associated with autonomy. And this cuts across the levels. We may have a special interaction for school, for colleges, and for university, but I'm giving you a general scenario because it's no matter my child is in school, your child may be in college, or somebody's someone is learning. So you can these issues reverberate as I list them on the screen, because somehow or the other we all are experiencing them, facing them, or confronting them in everyday life. Now, what are the issues with online learning? And this is where I would say that COVID was an eye-opener. COVID was an era where we actually thought of this how in a different fashion. That is, we were challenged by inability to move from one place to other, and quickly the teachers came up. And in this, I must pay my regard, my due regard, and which I always do. I never lose any opportunity to do this. Manoj Reddy sir and Ramarao sir, to pay my regards to the school teachers. And I tell you why. This is a small experience in my life. When my students here, or people doing PhD, when they submit their PhD, they write acknowledgements, fancy acknowledgements. And many of you must have done this and read this, that I, with my bottom of my heart, give gratitude to my guide, Dr. XYZ, for giving me, guiding me. I said, oh my God, what have we done? We have done nothing. You just remember the first person whose finger you held and went to the school. Your parents. Number two, the teacher who made you how to know how to hold a pen. The very first thing to get educated, or even literate for that matter. And those are the people, those who with complete dedication, with complete, honesty, loyalty, with love, care, affection, wiping your nose, wiping your tears, using their sari pallus to clean your face because you were willing, I want to go back home, where is my mom and dad? And then those are the people who were gods for you at one point of time. And I tell you one thing, and this will it will ring bells in your mind. If you have your child and the teacher says, tomorrow we are celebrating our national day, and you all have to wear a kurta which is red in color, and she points to her kurta. Tell me and remember, how many of you recall this instance that your child made you run the entire market to get the same tone of red that madam showed to you? You said, you manage with this. No. Madam was wearing a different red and I want that red only. They are the gods. They are the people, those who sow the seeds. They sow ideas in your mind. They sow everything, the basics of education in your mind. They are the people who raise you. We get fruits which are already cut. We just salt on. No, this is your teacher up until your schooling, up until your graduation. What have we done? We have just guided you to write this chapter. This is the template. You follow this, use this theoretical framework. This is the template. And I have done nothing more than what a normal guide would do. Okay, because by this time, when I get a 22, 23-year-old MA student to come and do MPhil and PhD with me, the person is literate, the person is reading well, the person is knowing how to use everything, and just managing, putting everything from assembly line into one place and producing a product. So my gratitude goes to that teacher from where it all started, the raw material getting shaped into a final product one day, and it's a complete process. So that is why I say that online teaching is going to change that also. But the importance of that fundamental layer of learning is so immense that we as guide cannot replace it. So I always tell my students, those who submit PhD, that in acknowledgement, please do mention your complete journey, not just the final destination, the last stop when you start packing your bags and you are about to embark or just disboard the train or the plane from where you have taken it. Now, what are the various modes of this learning? One is on campus, physical, that we are used to. One is off campus. This is virtual learning, digital learning, online learning, distance learning, or e-learning. Whatever name you may talk about. Offline was also happening earlier, like you have some very good schools of distance learning, like Annamalai was very famous, Usmania was very famous, Indira Gandhi National Open University is into this distance learning and program. So what we have now is this virtual learning or online learning or e-learning that we use now these days. And then the third one is the blended, which is a mix. And National Education Policy 2020 talks about this mixed learning. Now, what are the advantages of this online learning, which I'm going to discuss now? Affordable, cost effective. These are some of the things. And it helps also because not everybody is having that, the privilege of being a regular student. Sometimes some people from some sections of the society might have to manage work along with their studies. This is something which is one of the challenges of education system in India or Indian society, that some of them are forced to work, some of them did not get educated at the appropriate time, some of them have other responsibilities or things. So online education has certain advantages that it helps a learner to have all this. Student attendance, say for instance, in some areas, in some villages, the safety of girls is very important. So they say that, all right, it is better online than going offline because there is no even appropriate toilet in the school premises, or there is no roof in rains, where will children sit? So there are various issues which are pertaining to that it's better to remain here and do your degree, even a distance degree, as compared to something going physically attending it on a regular basis. Sometimes I say that this variety of courses is for teachers or for the students also very relevant, because say for example, I'm a sociologist and I talk about European society. As a subject matter of sociology, French Revolution was never ever taught to me as the main topic because it was not part of the main syllabus. So I may enroll in one of the online courses which is of European history, get additional information, I learn from an interdisciplinary perspective, enrich my knowledge, and use that knowledge in order to enhance my existing knowledge of sociology. So that helps. So that way, what happens that it is not just for the disadvantaged or underprivileged sections, but even for people, those who their skill, knowledge about or learning, can also go for education. I'm engaged in preparing. In that to French Revolution, Europe, French Revolution, rise of Industrial Revolution, and all this. But French Revolution as a topic is never ever clearly discussed. So you can always go back. I suggest them go and read a module on French Revolution in political science, and you can enhance your knowledge about French Revolution. So it helps us to blend disciplines. It helps us to have an interdisciplinary perspective, and that consolidates my understanding about sociology, not just from sociological perspective, but from also economics or from political science perspective or historical. It is, yes, time consuming in the sense that you may not have to travel because people take so much of effort to travel also, and flexibility to communicate. And I share my experience of MOOCs with you, that sometimes, and this happens with everyone, you have witnessed this. I can't say that anybody who has gone to the conventional education system has not seen this. Sometimes students are hesitant to ask a question to a teacher. So when the class ends, they run after the teacher or would meet them in a private classroom or the teacher's room, and they would ask, ma'am, I wanted to ask this question to you. So the flexibility to communicate with the teacher, with the instructor at that side, or not seen, or the inhibition to speak in front of 30-40 people, those things are taken care of by this online education. Then you can customize your learning environment. We are connecting across time. And so I had never imagined that one day in all nice set of circumstances, I would be speaking to people belonging to Telangana Jana Vedika society. So we are connecting across time and space. We are also reducing, the cost in terms of connecting, because earlier, if you have to invite an expert from London School of Economics, he flies, then you take care of his hospitality, this and that. Straight away, you cut on 3 lakhs of expenditure, have the expert, the same thing he talks with you, without jet lag and without, paying for the massive cost of travel and all these things. So flexibility, connecting space and learning at your own pace are some of the advantages of online learning. And these are not just the few. This list is not exhaustive. This is actually an expandable list, and you can add n number of it. And while I talk, while I integrate, while I narrate, sew them all into one narrative, you may think about many other things that have also touched your lives in terms of online education and helped you. Say, for example, when I was doing my conventional degree of JNU, PhD in sociology, I later on enrolled for a degree on what do you say, distance education program in MBA. And that helped me a lot in terms of enhancing my skill of knowing sociology, management. And then when I talk, I sometimes borrow examples from management sciences also. Although, of course, I don't flaunt that degree, but it was an enhancement into my limited understanding of the social world and also from the industrial perspective, because it helped me. Sociology responded, the development of sociology responded to urbanization and industrial revolution. So when I know management theories, it helps me also to understand the social structure and social changes at that point of time. So it's always an added advantage to have some additional knowledge from a different discipline. When I compare with disadvantages, what happens? And these are, now I'll discuss them in terms of well-being in terms of physical well-being, in terms of mental well-being, and in terms of social well-being. And the disadvantages that are discussed in online education, and particularly not just from school perspective, but also across the levels of education, digital divide. And one individual, that was a very tragic instance of a girl from one of the colleges, prestigious colleges, girls' colleges of Delhi University, ended her life, unfortunately, because of not having access to the online education in terms of the gadgets or the digital divide. Focus on screen, technology or connectivity. Even my screen might be stopping sometimes in between because of the connectivity and all the issues. Am I audible? Am I visible? Am I seen? Is my share screen okay? Can you see it? Is it changing? Oh, is it not changing? I am unable to. So the large number of problems related to this. And there is a lot of indirect cost to this. It's not just, it might be, ringing bells for people, those who are engaged in the process of selling gadgets of online. But I tell you, there's a hub here in Delhi, and this quite famous place, Nehru Place. The business went up, online education. This is not working. This is not proper. The screen is fading because kids are using it so much that they spoil it. And it's usually said, if the mobile is spoiled, then the child has done it. And if the child is spoiled, the mobile has done it. So whom do you see as a cause and a consequence? So the kids were using this, and then the technology, connectivity, and the indirect cost that you bear in terms of using these things. It lacks a personal touch, to be very honest. I always keep this, even if I have to write 2-3 things, it gives me a sense of satisfaction that I'm speaking and I'm using this board. This chalk and talk will never ever go out of fashion. Because when you are saying something, you scribble, you write. It's not, I tell you, just experiment it. When you write with the paper, your ideas, your thoughts flow so quickly. And when you are typing it, it is sometimes, the A is not capital, so undo, delete, backspace. And by the time you do this technology, you do this physical aspect, this goes out, the chain breaks. So it lacks a kind of personal touch among people, that how do we connect with the teacher? And then sense of isolation, peer engagement, online viva. I've said question mark, and I'll tell you my experience here in the university, how much you manage screen time and health issue. Why online viva? You spend 3-4 years doing your PhD. And when it comes to the last day of your viva, your interview, when you defend your PhD, you actually want at least 10-15 people, faculty members sitting in the room, and 2 examiners asking you questions. But and after that, when they congratulate you, okay, Dr. Abha Pratap, now you are a doctorate, you have defended well your thesis, that sense of accomplishment that a person, a scholar, feels at that point of time, it's not there in online viva. What you do maximum is staring in my room. Where am I sitting? You do not know. Is it a balcony, or is it my rain roof, or is it something in my bedroom, or even wall next to my bathroom? Because I need a private space. I need a personal space where cacophony of my background is not there. So then you you run out, you meet your parents, but people, your contemporary, your stakeholders, your mentors, your guides, you just want to touch their feet, get embraced by them. That personal touch of that viva online is missing there. And that is why I've kept this in question marks. And then management of screen time, you shut your screen, nobody there to put a small piece of sweet in your mouth, congratulating you, Dr. Manoj Reddy. Now you are ready for jumping into the world of academics. So the kind of isolation, that sense of detachment there, it is not fulfilled by online. And that is why I would suggest, wherever I can, that please hold vivas at least the last leg of your journey, at least online, so that sense of fulfillment, accomplishment, that touch with the product. And this is what I give example from management sometimes, that earlier we used to have this over the counter sale. So in my time, I would go to the grocery shop, to the shops, to the clothes, and I would ask for, give me one toothpaste, one jam bottle, one brush, and one soap. And the person would keep these 4 items on the counter, and they would just make a bill. They would say 150 rupees, and I would give and come out. Now look at the world. What you do, Manoj sir, you carry a basket and you get to touch everything on the counter. You just look at it. I don't need it, but okay, sometimes when the guest comes, we may need it, put it in the basket. The trolley is full of the things by the time you reach the counter. So if genuinely you had to purchase for 200 rupees, you end up spending 2000 for the things. Why? Because you came in the contact with the product. And the moment you touch it, it generates a sense of ownership. Or yes, I may need it sometime, maybe, no, may not be, but it would be okay. And you come and you put your things in there. So that is the essence of the touch, that it connects you to the product. So agar this happens in marketing, even in purchasing something that you actually do not need, then what to talk about the thing that you have written, you have spent 4 years of best decade of your life, from 25 to 20 or 29 or 30. So that sense of relationship with your product needs to be there. Coming quickly to these 3 areas of physical, mental, and social well-being. Physical, all of know, not just with the students, even those who work in the offices tend to have this. Mental, all this because people are actually, there were news items, and one thing which happened in UP, the mother refused to give 10,000 rupees for game addiction. The child killed the mother. So these are the extreme kind of high risk behaviors that are demonstrable. And the low risk ones, feeling low, not connecting, spending so much of time on my screen, disinterested in all the things. Better your auntie has come, for vacation. No, I'm much more interested in my some game which is happening here. So the kind of mental and physical, and then the social. How are you going to do it? How are you going to manage it? You are lacking those skills. Whether the child is pampered, it's a balcony child, he has not seen the competitive struggle, the dhakkas and jhatkas, and the pushes and pumps of the real life. That is why you tend to drop the child with your AC car on, break him AC car in, and you look at my generation. I was a sweating one, waiting for bus, hanging on to the door, DTC buses. 3 will go in 3 hours because as a girl I cannot step in, and then we'll just somehow push ourselves. Those are the struggles that polish you to become mature, not just as a learner, but as an individual to face. So now, even if AC is not there, I can just use my hand fan throughout the night and sleep in that, and next day be ready for my lecture class. So those are the struggles that actually take the best out of you, the struggles, rather than the soft, pampered kind of upbringing where, oh, my child is the best, he must get best. Why? Because is he handicapped? Is he mentally, physically not prepared to face the world? And this is what we as a generation is pumping into their mind and their life. And that is why from the cards that we used to make, शू बॉक्स आ जाता था कभी कभी घर में, when we used to have, we'll tie a thread, pull it all around the house, you know, as if it's a cart. And then the next generation got some push wheels, they used those, kept them running, and now they are having remote, the car goes there under the carpet, under the sofa. Now the child will not take it out. Papa, please help me to bring that out, because now the mobile, the remote is not working and it's not getting reversed because it got stuck in the sofa. So the times are changing. We are not just digitalizing in the sense of content, but also in the sense of our entire operating system is becoming that way, that you use a button, Alexa switch on, Alexa switch off. We are reducing ourselves to the buttons. So the new system is online, offline, and hybrid. I'll take another 10-15 minutes to wind this up, and then we'll have questions here. And despite this offline, online, and hybrid, the study material involves these two important components, the text and the videos. Now, the study material, the PowerPoint presentations. Why PowerPoint? I'm usually not a person who uses PowerPoint, to be very honest with you. And for 10-15 minutes lecture, it's absolutely not required. But when you are making a 1 hour presentation on screen, how long can you look at my face? I'm not doing anything which is glamorous in nature. I'm talking about something which you may know, may not know, may like, may not like, may already know, may have a better opinion, may have a lesser opinion, may be disinterested. So what does PowerPoint do here? It serves the purpose of keeping the person engaged on screen. Now, if you look at the color of the slide, and this is purposefully done here, once again, in order to catch attention, because the initial slides were all black and white. So as you move in the time, these days, even this pedagogy, this mechanism is being used by the news anchors also. The opening statement by XYZ, the spokesman of this party, all of you have 35 seconds to speak on the first go. And then there is a counter running around, you know. So how do you keep people engaged? Change the frame, change the screen, change the color, keep the people, audience engaged. How long can you engage them? So for online learning as a study material, you need PowerPoint presentations, because here I'm not using that conventional board to draw something. So I must show, I must keep my audience or my people, my students or the learners engaged. Then you use AV resources. This is a spontaneous lecture. So still I am using some resources here like PowerPoint presentation. But when you are teaching a subject in the class, you need videos, speeches, enrichment, photographs, documentary, diagrams. Even I use things like this. So I can draw a diagram, I can use something, and these interactives help students to keep their focus, their attention. Otherwise, just a routine phase for a long period of time, reading from a text. See, among all other things, the theory of demographic transition is 3 stages, which states that in the first stage, both the death rate and the high rate of a given area are high. In the second stage, my neck is not moving. I'm reading. The student will say, oh, ma'am, I can equally, in a better fashion read it. I can read it in my own language. I can get translations, this and that. So how do you make it engaging? It's not just your mouth speaking, it's your body also conversing with the audience. So you have to have those kind of resources, not just on the screen, but even within you to engage the attention. Then the videos, the procured videos, which you use in order to say, for example, I tell my student, watch this video. If it's too long, we don't run it in the class. But if in case it's a small video, 1.5 minute, then I cannot use my screen space, just to run somebody else's space. So you have procured videos, short duration, and the self videos that you make yourself or your own productions. Then we use videos a lot in online learning, and we are using already existing material or delivering lectures, a session, organizing standalone lectures on specific topics or video lectures as a part of series. Now, these are the kind of material that are existing along with the files and the text that you send student or prescribe them. Go and read this, go and watch this, go and refer to this journal, go and read this chapter in this book. Now, I'm particularly talking about the content right now. The content in all these in all these study materials it must conform to certain parameters. And the parameters are these. That is the duration. It must not go beyond the observable duration of the audience. We are all mature people. We are all belonging to a particular age group. So we are we are meaningfully engaged to a goal. But look at students, naughty, when the young students, those who went to class 1 and the lockdown happened, they did not know what is happening on the screen. They thought mama is showing some boring video channel to me, which I am not understanding. And then imagine their predicament. Now suddenly they go to class 3 where they have to learn tables from 12 to 19. The poor child does not even know how to plus or minus or do subtraction or addition. Now he is doing division of 3-digit number. So this is where the duration and the way of engagement had to be very effective, which I think missed. Now we'll unfold all this because the school started 2022 batch only in April, and after 1 month's time, there was again a summer vacation. The real test starts from tomorrow, July onwards, when the kids start going back to the school or the students start coming back here. So the duration of these lectures, how much is the absorption power, how long are they effective? Is this content appropriate? Is the language that we are using appropriate? Are we communicating objectively the kind of comments that we are making? And this pertains to us a lot because we are social scientists. And why I say so, the language that you use, the comment that you make, these are very sometimes politically, ideologically driven, and these statements must not be made as an instructor or as a teacher. Because my task as a teacher is to serve you with the ideas, not to impose a set of ideas on you. It is your choice to choose which one do you like. Everybody has a personal disposition, likeness, dislikeness, ideology, leaning, not leaning, and interest or disinterest. But as a teacher, you have to maintain that value neutrality. You have to sound as equidistant from all, otherwise I will be imposing my flavor or my color upon you. As a social scientist and particularly as a sociologist, I make this very particular even in my talks, that I do not reflect my leanings. I am also a socio-cultural construction. I do have my priorities, my likes and dislikes, but when I discharge all this as an instructor, as a teacher, as a coach, as a guide, then if I start imposing myself upon somebody, I am doing a disservice to my profession. Because I'm not letting you think, and from your perspective, I'm imposing my ideas upon you. And that is what is not objectivity. I'm not serving you subjectivity. I'm not serving you my personal opinion. I'm here to tell you about all goods and bads. This is what Krishna says, that I'm not here to give you sermons about do it or do not. I'll tell you the advantages and disadvantages of fighting this war, but what you have to do is your own decision. So you have to have that objectivity, value neutrality, equidistant from any of the theoretical, political, philosophical, ideological underpinning, and let the person choose. That's his choice. And let it come out in him or her, rather than you telling him, you holding the fingers of his mind and taking him on a journey. And then usefulness of topic, that why I am discussing this. Lay down the structure right in the beginning. There's a Google map, and the way you use a Google map. You are here, your direction, your destination, this much time, this is the means of transport. This is relevance and usefulness of the topic has to be established, made very clear, so that even if somebody misses for some technical reason 5 minutes of your talk, he knows, oh, she hasn't traveled thus far. So the frameworks are to be very clear, in which you use interdisciplinary perspective so that interest everybody. You can't have a hardcore political science lecture. But these talks are sometimes general if you are not covering the syllabus. And then copyright issues and all other things, these are yes, part of videos and text also, and they must be kept in mind when you are delivering these things. The self-created videos, online lectures, and instant. Once again, the engagement levels, and I quickly come to the general netiquettes of presenter and participants also. And this is, I'll explain this because I've been into it for last 2.5 years, and you people also are there as presenter also and participant also. Remember that we are in cyberspace, and we have to adhere to the things which are very important. We are operating in a group, and sometimes you are sitting like this, doing this, in the background, everything is happening, and then the child is running, you just catch it, go, turn out, horns are honking. It's sometimes, I admit that it's really difficult in some instances to find a space. But as far as this is, it may remain very neutral. It may be office, yes, fine. It is we have to stay to the same standards. Sometimes people are traveling, sometimes people are not appropriately dressed, leaning in their bed, in their sofa. See, when I'm enacting all this, it generates a sense of humor also. Yes, we have seen such kind of situation. So we have to respect others' space. We have to get respect from others also. We have to respect their time and bandwidth. We have to respect ours also. You have to make yourself look as presentable. At the same time, I expect that it's both way. It's not one-way traffic. Both as a presenter and a participant, we have to adhere to some basic things and avoid this unnecessary demonstration of this. I went there, I went there. Who on planet Earth is interested in what you did? You have to stay focused on the topic and don't share, oh, when I was in Denmark, I was doing this, and then nobody is interested in this exhibitionism of your richness, of your knowledge of this. Please stay focused. This is your topic. This is your topic. You may go this and that way, but come back to the backbone, the central statement of your topic, and adhere to that. And this is where you can weave in all the stories from here and there, but then they have to be logically connected to what you are speaking. Otherwise, it makes it that the person is not focused. The person himself does not know, or herself does not know what kind of relevant or irrelevant issues and things he is discussing. So we have to be like this. So don't abuse your power. Don't abuse your status, questions and comments, because people are not forgiving. And in this cyber world, sometimes in teaching, all the cameras are off. You do not know whether the child is listening to you or not. And some instances, like one of the teachers in Gurgaon was talking about a government policy. The child was not listening. His elder brother was there. So he made a screenshot of that. The next day, the teacher, when she went to the school, they said, you are out of the school because you made a comment which was not palatable to the current government. So they said, no, go out. So this is how that you really need to be very, very specific choice of word, politically correct, incorrect. And this is where sometimes in social sciences, we feel this is a disadvantage being in a cyberspace, because you may be saying something, it may be quoted, it may be misquoted and played in different contexts, and the meaning and you pay with a heavy price that can come with this. So the personal touch, the things which are important in physical settings are there missing in the net or in the cyberspace. And that is why we must adhere to these core rules of etiquette, not just on the part of the participant, but also on the part of the behavior. Then all these things are very important when we are forming a content or when we are delivering content to our students in terms of form, content, all these things I have discussed. And these are the evaluation techniques that are now I'm running, as you can see with my speed of changing the slides also. In another 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum, I finish. And the last part of this is the changing roles of teacher. Now, in online, we are also facing so many issues and challenges where expectation from me are also changing and expectation from the group is also changing. Now, how do you see a teacher? Once again, I know this is a cloud, word cloud that you see in this. What all you as a teacher can do, and how much can you do? It's not easy to do justice to everybody's expectations sitting at a distance. So how much can you do, and what all can you do? These are the two important things we must keep in our mind when we are talking to our people or to our pupil. Now, the role of teacher is not just a simple role. Again, I have listed just 4 or 5 of this, but it can be much more than what I can imagine. An instructor, a coach, a trainer, a guide, a friend, or a philosopher, or whatnot, a peer or a sib, or whatever can you imagine in this. So can you have a role like a guide? And I know you must have seen these movies, Tare Zameen Pe. You become one-to-one. In Indian education system, given the teacher-student ratio so poor, it is very difficult to have this kind of. How many people you will find for one Ishan in the class, when you have to finish a syllabus, when you have to cover 6 classes, when you have 8 sections to cover, along with your administrative duties, you have your teaching duties, and along with that, you have your household responsibilities and a personal life also. So it's very difficult to become somebody like Amir Khan of Tare Zameen Pe, but yet not impossible. Or you become like this, that students are fearing you, that go there, do this, do this. So are you so engaging, or are you doing this, distanciating, and you are ruling through fear? Do this or I'll throw you, jump or I'll kick you in the water. Or you are just part of that entire process, getting into it as an instructor, as a coach. So you are helping the child with this, not just emotionally getting attached, but physically distanciated, but overlooking the entire process. Or you are like this, the whole group, not a personalized attention, but the whole class is engaged. Yes, what ma'am is saying is something interesting, that is generating inquisitiveness in me. Is my method a traditional routine system of teaching where I lead by example and the rest of them follow me? These are the different ways in which we have also looked at teachers in our life. We have also seen these movies demonstrating the role of a teacher, and ultimately how this single person, no matter whosoever the protagonist of the movie is able to change, bring out change. Ultimately everybody is bringing change. All these movies which are there on the screen, the goal is to win. But do we actually win? Do we actually get these kind of teachers? Are we actually these kind of teachers? Are we actually these kind of parents? So this is where what we do, we help students in personality development, not just teaching. And that's why I say, right from day one, bring this kind of dupatta for the National Day up until the day this person comes and say, madam, I'm interested in doing UPSC. Will you permit me? I say, yes, please go. Because this is your life, this is your choice, this is the best decade of your life, 20 to 30. You are in best of health, intellectually, physically, biologically, every way. Then 30 way it starts receding. So you do it, and you please go and try it. I will help you in your PhD. So we are helping a person to do all this as a teacher. In online, some of these aspects are missing. And I tell you how these are missing. I bring your attention to this instance in Mahabharata. And in one of the episodes, Guru Dronacharya, he has all these disciple Kauravas and Pandavas in his ashram, in his Gurukul. And they find somebody, arrows, a dog coming, stuffed his mouth with arrows. So they go and try to find out who has done this drastic thing. So they find one tribal boy, Eklavya, he has stuffed the mouth of the dog with all the arrows. So he says, this is amazing. Guru Dronacharya, flocked by the Kauravas and Pandavas, the princes all. So he says, well, where did you learn this archery? So he said, from you only, Guruji. So he says, I did not teach you. He said, no, you have taught me. So he says, how? He says, come along. He shows that this statue, he makes this statue, ready, sir? And then he says that I used to bow down in this, and I've learned it from you only. So then the climax comes. They say that, okay, if you have learned it from me, you give me Guru Dakshina. And then the sad part of the story, what we see in Mahabharata, that he says, give me the thumb of your right hand, which is used to pull the string of the bow. My interpretation of it, this is just a metaphor. It is metaphor. My interpretation of this is that what does this right thumb means in archery is the essence. Without this, you cannot pull the string, you cannot have this, or you cannot have, the focus on the target. This is how you set the target. So this is the essence of archery. And you take this away. How would I do? Now the metaphor lies in the fact that what he did was online learning. Now imagine this situation. What he did not learn under the guru directly. What he was doing, online learning or distance learning. He had the guru, he had the attributes of guru, so he had the syllabus, but he did not learn from the acharan or the conduct of the guru. So he could cover the syllabus, but he knew how to shoot, hit the target, but he did not know when to shoot, when not to shoot, whom to hit, whom not to hit. He did not learn from Guru's acharan, the morality that the Guru had, along with just covering the syllabus that this is the bird's eye and you have to hit it. So Reddy Sahab, what he missed was the offline learning, the physical aspect of it. So what does this mean, taking away this? This is just an indication. This is just an indicator of that he missed this in online education. So the saja is that he could not learn the conduct. All he knew could cover the syllabus. And we tend to see that Guru did a very wrong thing to him. No, the story is saying something else. You learn a lot from the teacher. The way I speak is also a reflection of one of the teachers in my life. The way I speak, the way I conduct myself, everything we learn from somebody or the other. It is not necessarily your university or school teacher. It can be anybody. Maybe a shopkeeper whom you like very much in your locality. He is also imparting some education to you while giving money back to you with both his hands. Never ever leave. So he's also telling you how to respect this Lakshmi that is there in your hands. So you learn from so many sources, so many people. So taking away your thumb is a saja, but the metaphor is that you did not learn the essence of education, the philosophy, that the target has to be shot only for defense of the underprivileged or needy people. So that is what is my interpretation, that online education does not give you all those essence, philosophical foundation that are associated. All I do is cover my syllabus. Okay, all right, read this, cover this, answer this with open books, and this is what. So the main challenge of online education is that we are not able to build that student-teacher relationship that is very important. So what we need to do as a teacher is do all this, nurture their minds, sow the seeds. And that's why I said the school teachers are doing this. We are just getting the ripe fruit, cut our phal. We are just sprinkling some chaat masala on it and eating it and saying that we did it. No, we are helping them to learn all this. Now, what is my role? The last 2 minutes, what is my role to a learner? To help him to do all this. Develop knowledge, skill, mentorship, confidence, competence, personality, task management, time, stress, and holistic. But at the same time, what is my role for myself? In this change scenario, I need to be doing all this because education is not just my means of earning. It is my vocation, my passion that comes in my speech, in my thought, in my mind, in my language. I eat, drink, sleep education. It is not just means of learning or earning. It is doing justice to my profession when I am able to connect to my audience, when I am able to do justice to my service that I'm doing to this society. And this is how I reach the philosophical foundations of education. What, why, and how. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your attention. I stop sharing my screen here and discussion. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Online education దీని మీద సుమారుగా ఇరవై నిమిషాల సమయం ప్రొఫెసర్ వారు మాట్లాడడం ఎవరికైనా డౌట్స్ కానీ ఏమైనా ఉంటే మేడంను అడగచ్చు ప్లీజ్. క్వశ్చన్స్ కానీ ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ కానీ ఉంటే మేడంను అడగచ్చు ప్లీజ్.
Dipendu Chaudhary.
Namaskar, everybody. Thank you very much, madam, for your authentic presentation and a speech also. I would like to refer two reports. One is Central Foundation and Omidar Network. This report said 50% of the students of our country reading private school. And second one report is SR Education Reports 2018 said 35% students of Gram Bharat who's are 5th grade, they all fail to read basic 2 paragraph. My question is, how we will extend our support online education?
Okay, shall I answer one by one, or we take a couple of questions, James, and then move
As you like.
one by one?
Yeah, no, we'll
We
take a
can
couple
do
of
one.
questions.
Yeah.
You please answer this question first because it is a
By
complex
the
thing.
time the audience gets warmed up.
Yeah.
So, Dipendra sir, thank you so much for your question. Your hand was raised right in the middle. And you're very right. There are a variety of, these are just two reports that you are mentioning too, in which say that 50% private school and 35%. I started by saying, the three things, that one is the philosophical foundation. To achieve a particular goal, the means are not appropriate. Our means are incommensurate with the kind of goals that we are achieving. Because when I talk about education and philosophy, then we are talking about something else. We are talking about that wisdom, that intelligence that comes with, reading, writing, and everything. And when it comes to education, practicing education, we are coming down to schooling level and all these things. And given the kind of diversity and disparity, inequality that we have in India, those who are able to board the bus, those who are able to buy education, not just private schools, having hostels, spending so much of money. I'll not give any figure to you. You just imagine the best that you can imagine about the brands of schools that are there in the private sector, then the hostels, then the facilities, then the buses, air-conditioned buses, air-conditioned classrooms, and this and that. And the kind of gadgets that the students in these schools have, even along with the best of teaching, they say that, you have access to these apps which are selling education now, that, okay, ours have these, this is audio, video, something, which is all there. That is why the final outcome is so distorted in our country. Everybody wants Indian heritage to be preserved, but nobody would send their child to do a BA in Sanskrit and read Vedas and interpret them. What I want, that Sanskrit, the next door neighbor should study, and my child should study in IIS Bangalore. We will get a heavy pay packet, and he will California for become software engineer. So the kind of expectation that we have, there is a mismatch. The goal is there, the means are not there. The means are there, the goal is not existent. Okay, then what we expect from others, what we expect from us is totally different. What we expect from the education system is not commensurate with what kind of investment that we are making. The resources are less. And that is why 35% people fail to read. There are n number of reports which talk about that, why students go to the midday meal scheme for their nutrition, for attraction, for enrollment. What not is there, what not is being done. But somehow, given the size, given the magnitude, and given the layers of bureaucracy and offices, somewhere the main message of the entire philosophy, it dilutes the process. And that is why we are not able to deliver what we are supposed to deliver in the process. And unless we have that synergy between means and the goals, the synergy and ability to overcome the kind of divides which are dividing or plaguing the education system, we will continue to have this failure and 50%, because we to the best public school in your city. Will you send him to the MCD? You will not send. If I ask you that, okay, your child is very good up to class 10th, he knows everything about physics, chemistry, and he is very good in Sanskrit also, let him pursue a career in Sanskrit Vedic philosophy and become a researcher on Indian Vedas. I'll say, then what will she get? What will he get, Sheetal? Why to waste time? There are no takers of it. He will just keep on, ragadong his from one office to another. Maximum he can become a teacher of Sanskrit. Who looks at respect with teachers of Sanskrit language, this and that? Let him become a mathematician. Sir, our choices are such, and it's not kids' fault. It's my fault as a parent. I'm injecting them with physics, maths, science, American dream. And then we say that they do, and the divide would continue to exist because the child's mind is for aspiration. And the underprivileged classes, you look around in your city, in your towns, in your house, if a maid comes, how do they manage day and night, work out to even get a very minimum basic gadget for the child to do online classes? But then the child is more interested in playing games because he is aspiring, the role model is your master's son. So he's wearing this, he's doing this, he's doing this, so I must also do this. So the maid next day comes and she beats her, scratches her hair, that madam, mere ko kya ho gaya? My son does not do this, he failed. So these are oft repeated example in our society. And unless until we are able to address the root cause of this society, to know is to predict, and to predict is to control. I laid down certain philosophical foundations right in the beginning. Unless we do that, sir, it will be very difficult to bring even a small change in the statistics that you read out to me. Thank you, Dibin, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And may I now request Professor Sudhakar Kandakatla, who is a retired law college professor.
Well, thank you very much, Ramugaru and the Jana Vedika peer groups, and Mrs. Sheetal Sharma, Dr. Sheetal Sharma. I am basically a professor of law operating in a conventional university like Kakati University, Warangal. And our teaching learning system is something different from that of a JNU system, to tell very frankly. But however, in recent times, suddenly the pandemic has operated as a game changer in the traditional learning, coupled with that of the distant learning to that of e-learning or online learning. So we have been experiencing these difficulties of online learning. And of course, by this time, many of the teachers have actually equipped with and trained themselves for a quality online teaching learning methods as such. But however, as a teacher who is engaged in this so-called online teaching, I have got, in addition to the pros and cons as advanced by Dr. Sheetal Sharma, I have a few of the advantages that I could able to experience in my online teaching are such that, because I have actually been laid down as a professor of law about a decade back, and after laying down, still fortunately I am engaged with Kakatiya University and many other universities as well in teaching and of course learning. So that made me to be in conformance with the changes that are occurring in legal learning. So one thing is that the online legal learning, online global learning, or the teaching may reach the global at least in the entire country to those people who are not reached at all. And it is more efficient, reduce the cost of both equipment and classroom and other peripheral area. And it is better and efficient because when a teacher is sitting online, he can parallelly look into various books and all that and communicate instantly to the students. So that is how it is more effective. But on the other kinds of cons or the disadvantages are that there is no self-discipline. That's what I have experienced today among the students. As to who are present, who are not present is not known, because there is no compelling condition on part of the teacher to see the face of the students who are actually online, available or not. Because many times we have experienced that they just log in and go away. And in the absence of the face-to-face interaction, this has got many disadvantages as to whether a teacher could be able to reach them or not. Is always a doubt. And other important disadvantage is that there is a mismatch of, there is a gap between the friendship of the peer groups. In a conventional classroom, students will know who is, and there is a question that there is a possibility of bandage, a development of bandage, and after 10 years or 50, even 50 years, the old classmates will meet and have some kind of functions and all that. That is also missing because of these 2 years or more than 2 years of online teaching, learning system. And other important aspect that I was missing is that the body language of a teacher could not reach the students, because it is a fact that an English a language may serve the purpose to the extent of 15-20%. And of course, content also may be around 20%, but the remaining 30-40-50% is basing on the body language. And the body language of teacher will definitely penetrate into the minds of the students, and that's how they can able to grasp the subject. That's what is my perception. And there is no advantage of peripheral things. As rightly Sheetal Sharma was citing about Dronacharya and Ekalava, and this is impermissible in a online classes, because in online classes teachers are more cautious about framing their own framework and trying to operate only within the framework. But whereas in case of an offline classes, depending upon the situation or be faced by looking at the students' face and all that, they can just cross the limitations and try to give some more examples, both of real or fictitious or taking from many other works. Therefore, thereby they can able to penetrate or explain the subject to the students in a befitting manner. And other thing is, many of the students are lacking with the infrastructure and the data, because in a country like this, the students are supposed to have computers or at least smartphones with that of an internet work, and this internet may cost about 1.5 to 2 GB for a single classroom, and every day there are going to be 2-3 classes, and which is not economically affordable for an ordinary families. So that is also one of the hurdle. And other example I would like to cite here, probably this may not be applicable to the teachers operating in JNU or DU, is that I know many of the researchers in conventional universities like Usmania Kakatiya, where many of the prominent teachers in India are much unaware of the computer applications and all that, but they are good researchers. And if they are bound to convert into that of a classroom teaching, online classroom teaching, imagine what would be the result. However, as a teacher having some kind of knowledge, my teaching system is that before, actually I send the link for joining, and 5-10 minutes before I also upload the teaching material to them, so that is available, and I will share my content on the sharing, and I also use whiteboard or blackboard as the case may be online. But is it possible with many of the teachers as such? So these are all certain hurdles which I've been experiencing in online classes. So my general understanding is that permanent online classes are not at all going to serve the purpose of imparting quality higher education.
Thank you.
So maybe depending upon situations, like in order to, there is an opportunity where one can hear Harvard University or Kantab University professors or some other professor, which is normally impermissible. But whereas to that extent, we can go for online teaching learning systems. But whereas for other things, I strongly feel and opine that offline classes are more and more ideal than that of the compelling online classes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. May I now request Professor Vishnu Chaudhary. He's from Berhampur University. He's a senior most professor in political science. Chaudhary, sir.
1 minute, 1 minute.
Yes,
1
sir.
minute.
Yes, sir.
Am I?
Yeah, you are audible, sir. You are audible.
Yes. Thank you, Ramarao Garu.
You're audible and visible also.
I'm thankful to Telangana Jana Vedika for giving me an opportunity. I heard with rapt attention a very lucid presentation by Dr. Sheetal Sharma ji, and she had tried to make this presentation very interesting because she had many plus points. She is fluent. She has ability to communicate effectively. She has her own style of presentation, which is very rarely seen these days.
and she has command over this subject. Having appreciated her presentation, let me point out something. This online mode education or e-learning has been talked about for the last so many years. But due to COVID-19 pandemic, it became a must. But my first observation would be this online presentation is just like, as we say, vastra abhave sutram dadat. When you don't have a cloth, you give a piece of thread. That is what is happening. So when we talk about education for the last 2 decades or more, I have been attending seminars, conferences on different aspects of higher education particularly, where things like access, equity, excellence, expansion of education, more GR, and finally quality education is being talked about. But so far as the education is concerned and its relevance is concerned in the present structure, we talk about quality education because it talks about employability. It talks about a job-ready student. And the word quality comes from the word qualis, which means what kind of education you are imparting. So mostly skill is being emphasized in the present context. When we talk about education, along with degree and diplomas, we talk about skill. But problems are commercialization of higher education, privatization of higher education. There is a need of industry, academia collaboration. And finally, we talk about also internationalization of higher education in the wake of globalization. So far as the distance education is concerned, or what we call also open learning, I have a feeling, except a few universities which are offering distance education very seriously, others have become degree distribution centers. Very pure and simple. You apply, you pay a certain amount of fee, you get some study materials, and finally you get a degree or diploma. You apply, you pay a certain amount of fee, and you get a degree. Then in the COVID period, pandemic period, we have found students demanding online examination. Haranguing the vice chancellor, haranguing the principal. Why online? Because they want to look and write. They want to get the advantage of this COVID pandemic. So that is there. So we have seen years, for 2 years, there was no class, few online classes. I would say they are alibis. So far classes are concerned. I have taken a stand that nowadays in universities, because I taught in the university system quite long, 36 years in a PG department, not a small period. And I studied for 6 years in the higher education structure from pre-university to MA. So 6 for 36, 42 years involved very seriously in teaching. I'm not a good researcher, but I can claim that I'm a reasonably a good teacher. That you might have heard from my lectures in the earlier presentations. So what I found, all these online classes, whenever you start an online classes, how many students they make it on and they don't listen to you. They are outside. Number one, they don't have an interest. So now a situation has come. We have a classless society. Classes are not regularly held, classless, and nobody gets a second class or a third class. Everybody is a first class. 128 students admitted to sociology, 128 first class. Like we find in the matriculation, when we got 60%, people came to see us. Who is that fellow in a rural setting who got 60%? Now you ask any parent, what is the percentage of marks you got in ICSE? Oh, 98.9. So my son is very much worried that it is not 99.9. This is the type of education is being imparted. So what are the problems? First problem is, as I've told you, problem of affordability, problem of accessibility, problem of, teaching students who are handicapped, who are hearing impaired. These are the problems. I find nowadays teachers coming with PPT presentation. I don't believe in PPT. I believe in party. Whatever I speak, I can speak for 3-4 hours on a subject in which I have mastery or I have some knowledge. But PPT means if the current fails, PPT presentation stops. Nowadays, this has also made teachers lethargic. They don't visit library. They don't go to see the original books. When we were students in MA, I have seen professors going to library, sitting for 2 hours, then coming to class to take class. Now it is not necessary. You can invite me to any university. I can talk 2 hours, 3 hours in political science for a PG student, for MPhil students without any preparation. No problem, because the audience is not not prepared to judge me or what I say. They cannot question. 30 years back, I was a young lecturer, or 35 years. Students were questioning. Now they are not questioning. Whatever I say, this is one-way traffic. Oh, sir told very fine things. Finished.
Thank you,
The
sir.
other day I was talking about values in the Indian Constitution. The people in Mizoram University, those who attended, they gave the comment, excellent, very good. Not a single question was put to me. I spoke for about 1 hour, 40 minutes. So this is the type of education. So what are the problems? First problem is lack of motivation. Secondly, there are areas. Take the example of my state, Orissa, where we have nearly 39 point something, roughly 40% of people who are Dalits and Adivasis. Highest number, 62 categories of tribals living in various parts of Orissa. Can they afford?
We are running
I was a
short
member
of
of
time,
the-
sir. Thank you, sir. Sir,
Yes, only
Yeah.
1 minute.
yeah.
I'm concluding. So because there is no other alternative, we are going for education. Otherwise, there is no alternative to talk and talk and face to face. What I'm speaking, my eyes, my expression is more important than what I speak. Thank you, Ramarao Garu, because of paucity of time. I have jotted down about 31 points, but I cannot speak today. I
Thank you.
thank Dr. Sharma for her I liked her presentation very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dr. Prasad, Professor Prasad Rao, sir, you want to ask anything? Because you called me. Professor Prasad Rao. They're online, but okay. Manoj. Manoj, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, madam. Really, the wonderful evening and wonderful session, madam, by you. As the sociology is mother of all sciences, you are a scholar in all the departments, madam, including political science and all. Really, बहुत शुक्रिया मैडम आपके हर सब्जेक्ट के तरफ से हमारे को बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं आपको और आने वाले दिनों में भी आप हमारे को थोड़ा सा टाइम दिए तो और एक सेशन में दूसरे टॉपिक के ऊपर भी अपन आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं मैडम वैसा और थैंक यू सो मच मैडम रियली आई हैड अ ग्रेट टाइम थैंक यू Ramana.
Thank you, Manoj. One last question I would like to ask by Mr. Adama Srinivas Reddy, who is a continuous educationist and is fighting for the right to education. All this.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Ramu, sir. Good evening, madam. All the participants. Sir, actually, I have a question for madam.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
The context of, sir, am I audible?
Oh,
sir?
yeah, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Sir, my question is in the context of when online education has become a new normal, many of us are talking about the limitations of online education. particularly the element of character of socialization, which misses in online education. And online education proposes only individualistic learning only. So how to come over this challenge? This is the main challenge before us. That's why I am emphatically asking, in the context of online education become new normal, how to face this challenge? This is my question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Madam, in fact, I also had a lot of questions before the start of this session, but you have comprehensively talked and I don't have any questions. So therefore, you can answer the questions before we propose the vote of thanks, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ramarao sir, for that. And Reddy sir, you are very right in terms of saying this is a very good sociological issue that you have raised. That individualistic learning environment. Say, for example, if I rotate my camera around, I'm sitting here, and if I happen to be a student, then I'm just scribbling something, looking at something else. There are so many distractions. The individualism that this kind of system is promoting, this is very dangerous. It was earlier happening, but only 5% of students may be like this in a class of 100. Now only 5% are attentive, and 95%, as Vishnu sir was saying, their cameras are off. You do not know whether they're listening to you or not, and somebody else is listening. Acha dekhe how your teacher teaches. You are put to greater scan, as compared to your classroom. In class, you can still make students understand, but here father is also observing, mother is also, acha ye padha diye ye, so that is how you are under 40 people's eye rather than 10. And then you do not know whether the genuine ones are observing you or listening to you or not. So number one. Number two, how to bring a solution to this. Particularly speaking, every person has his own style of managing things and problems in life. I'm a very optimistic person. I never look at the negative sides. I always think, theek hai, ho gaya, problem ho gaya, 10 baar theek hai, now it's like rerouting yourself. Let us see how we can actually take this challenge. In this case, we have to really, the socialization agencies, particularly the family, has to come into greater action. They have to swing in action. Because what has happened, say, if Reddy sir, we talk about gender, being a mother, my one ear is in the kitchen, my another ear is in the drawing room where guests have come, another mind is here, legs are somewhere else. So your attention is diverted. What kind of pressures every individual here is facing? So there, the responsibility of the primary unit of socialization, family, becomes very important. That how do you care for this? Say, for example, if I have a very unruly child in my family who just, feels very low, and the other one is very aggressive, tears down everything. Now, both of them are not compatible. Is it not the responsibility of the child, such as the responsibility of the state, to take care of all? Similarly, the society, the state, nation, communities are a reflection of microcosms. Society only, our families only. The way we practice patriarchy in home, my son will practice outside. The way I respect women in home, my son will do the same thing outside. So similarly, the way we relate to each other in the family, and it requires a lot of sacrifices and expectation and commitments from every member of the family. It's not father can wash off his hands, you take it, I just earn. It's not the mother, I just cook, you take the responsibility because you are more learned and all this. No, it is a four-wheel drive or car, or four wheels have to work in tandem with one another. Even if one flops, the car will wobble. So this is how the primary agency of socialization, when we talk about sociology of family, the primary agency of socialization is family, where we have to give such kind of confidence, environment, comfort, warmth, strength, whatever positive words I can use here, for a child to feel comfortable that, okay, this may be a small time in our life, say 2 years and 80 years life, a small change, it's one of these steps in the total journey where we have facing these problems. They may be over. Next time, even if we move on to second stage, still we'll have some problems of transition, but we should be able to overcome with some kind of strategy, efforts, and commitment or energy poured into it, and solutions are always findable. And then what has become new normal, Adam sir, again, I would say that we have to learn with certain problems in our life. You know, if we try to find solution to everything, you may not find like your spouse snoring. This is absolutely, I'm using a very day-to-day common example, because if in case you are fit and healthy, if you meet an accident, you lose one of your legs, are you not living with that? So you have to learn to live with new normals. You have to adjust, yes, with the given set of circumstances in which you operate, try to maximize the output of those variables. That's the optimum. Like, universe is full, but the best conditions were here in terms of humidity, temperature, water, oxygen, and nitrogen. So life thrived. All these debris, astronomical, this and that. The best is what we can find to have a life here. I think that is my answer to your very, very grave, sociological question. And this is what starts from us only, and it will end to us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I now request as the
Sir.
moderator.
Sir, Swati Mishra has a question. She is listening on Facebook.
Facebook, okay.
So,
You please ask.
so she's, yeah. Madam, this is a question from Ms. Swati Mishra, who's a doctoral candidate at IWST Bangalore. She asks, Dr. Sharma spoke about her journey and mentioned that in the field of social political sciences, one has to be at the top of class to be something, unlike in medical or engineering. So with the wide gap between academics and profession in these fields, how could there be more students who engage in these studies, moreover practice the same in the profession?
Swati, if you are listening to me, I did not get
She's
the question.
listening.
Yes, Swati, you said that in social sciences, one has to be top of the class to excel, unlike the medical engineering field. So the wide gap.
I think that is how, yeah, that is how she understood, madam. So she basically, her question is, with the wide gap between academics and profession in the social sciences fields, how could there be more students? How can there be more students who engage in these studies, moreover practice the same in the profession? She's asking, how can there be?
I think there is a slight gap in my understanding of the question. It is, see, no matter, one thing is that, yes, in India, students are operating in an ecosystem where they are pressurized to study something, even if they are not interested in it. Because when we sit for Viva, for PhD admissions and all, sometimes we get very different kind of CVs. When we read their academic journey and profile, oh, you did engineering, then you did something else, and now you want to do European studies. How do you trace your journey? Where do you see yourself going from being a ceramic engineer? Now you want to do something like this. So they always, 80% of students end up saying, sir, I did engineering, I did medical because parents said so. So then we discuss among ourselves that, see, such a kind of pressure is upon the child in order to take up a career or study a subject which he or she may not be interested in. It is not the case, Swati, that what subject do you study? You can excel in even a foreign language. Suppose you take up any foreign language which may have a direct bearing upon your profession or not imaginarily, but these days even foreign languages are opening a large number of professional vistas for you. So the thing is that whatever you do, whatever interests us, first of all, the student must be free to do that. Number two, that our interpretation, our perspective of, okay, you do Sanskrit, you do not get a good choice of career. If you do mechanics, then it would be fine. Optical engineering, then better. So we are being driven by a conventional set of thinking, where we have already set certain goals, and the goals are to be achieved through these means only: science, physics, chemistry, maths, because this is something which comes with a premium tag. Anything other than that is seen as okay, fine, but then this is something which is not okay. She might have excelled, he might have excelled. So number one, the choice. If you kill the choice, you are killing the creativity. you are killing the innovation. You carry the subject with a burden in your mind rather than with your own volition or choice. And when you do something with your interest, then you flourish in it better than something what you are doing under compulsion. Number three, that in our society, despite being such a big country with big population and development, still we are not open with number of areas within the disciplines, and we are just right now hanging on to the conventional ways of understanding political science or conventional way of understanding social sciences and all these things. When we get in touch with Western universities, we tend to see what kind of imaginative courses they are offering to students in political science, in sociology, in theology, in physics, in amazing variety. And then the course content is so exciting. We had never imagined that in our universities. We can actually think beyond political thinkers, sociological theories, sociological thinkers, this. We are still stuck in that traditional, routine, conventional kind of course and syllabus. We are not inventive to the essence or to the degree that the Western counterparts are. That is why their universities are lucrative. That is why their universities are attracting best of talent. And what we are doing, we are existing in silos. We have not been able to bridge those interdisciplinary gaps. Say, for example, I cite sometimes my example. Being a sociologist, I'm in international relations. So I look international relations from a sociological perspective. That is small change, a small step. It's not a big tir that I've borrowed somewhere, but still I'm a bit of interdisciplinary in my thinking, because conventionally IR is understood only from political science. I said, no, let a sociologist also enter the field and look about it. So our school is very interdisciplinary. In every area of studies, there are people from different disciplines. So we have to utilize the strength of this imagination, the interfaces, the interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and also reduce the burden of carrying some dreams of carrying weight of somebody else's dream. Father could not do, so let me do. Why? He had his own set of circumstances. Let me have mine. Let me explore. So the journey has to be explored by the explorer rather than carrying the weight of somebody else's dreams. I am not succumbing to it. So we have to give the proper ecosystem. The environment has to be conducive for learning. That we are unable to somehow cater to our generations. And we are critical of it, but honestly, we are perpetuating the same thing. We are making no big change in it. As a parent, honestly, somewhere your attention goes only in the achievement oriented, means oriented, goals oriented kind of teaching and learning, and this is what is very problematic, I think so.
Ma'am.
Yes, James. Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have already crossed 5 minutes. That's okay. May I now request James to propose a vote of thanks as the moderator has left. James, please do the honors of thanking Madam.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr.
Social,
Chetan Sharma.
political science.
It was a masterful masterpiece explanation of the foundations of education that you have given us at the start of your talk. From Emily Durkheim to Auguste Comte, you went deeply into the subject of the reason of learning, and how the thought process itself had evolved from Europe, and the evolution of sociology. It was brilliant. We really enjoyed it. We enjoyed listening to your wisdom and all your experience. Thank you for giving us all your learning to us. We really enjoyed it, Madam. And also, you have very, excellently explained us how the shift has been taking place into the aspect of online learning, and how that has had a lot of sociological impacts, which you have dwelt upon very seriously, and you have explained us that it is indeed a very, very important issue facing the society today, because we are seeing that the that education is responding to mostly expanding to the technological science aspects of the market, and in that sense is sending students into that field. And as you said brightly, that in that sense they are getting into certain silos, and their thinking is relegated only to that aspect, without the excellent emancipatory education thing. And so in that sense, teaching in FA has become, a more mechanized, chain of disconnected acts, and and without logic, without epistemological logic to it. And with that, it becomes a very sociological issue and a problem. Thank you, ma'am, for a wonderful and masterful presentation, giving us basically from the historical aspect, and a linear progression of the entire process of how it has been going, and especially with how things are going on in India. Thank you so much, ma'am, and we look forward for round 2 from you again, hopefully, and request Dr. Ramarao Garu for that. And thank you, madam, for a wonderful session. We all enjoyed it. We listened to it with rapt attention, and I thank you again, and good evening to every one of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We
Thank you.
will see you further. Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, ma'am.